Hello everyone and welcome back to the 2019 Tata Steel Chess Tournament. It's round 12 and we haven't shown any games from round 11. I said I will not be able to show any as I was off to that party. Well, some interesting things have happened. For example, Samuel Shankland resigned his game in a drawn position against Anish Giri, which, once again put Anish Giri tied for first place with Magnus Carlsen. So that was very interesting, not something that happens every day. But here, Carlsen faces with the white pieces Jan Krzysztof Duda, Polish Grandmaster, and it's quite an interesting game. I do hope you'll enjoy it. So without further ado, let's just check out this very nice game, and then we're going to talk about the standings and what happens in the final round. So Carlsen opens with d4. We have knight to f6, c4, e6, knight to f3, and d5. The queen's gambit declined is on the board. Knight to c3, and now d captures on c5, accepting on c4. We have e4 by Carlsen, opening up a discovered attack from the bishop to the pawn. We have bishop to b4, pinning the knight, and bishop captures. So as the knight on c3 is pinned, Duda can now capture on e4, which he does. We have knight captures on e4, we have castles, and now knight back to f6. This position has been reached in, I believe, over 200 games in the database, and the most often move here is knight captures on c3. But here after pawn captures, there's well, not all that much you want to do. You can even go back, because if you go for something like bishop captures on c3 and want to go grab material, white can either go bishop to b1, but even bishop to a3 is very nice, cutting off the black king from castling. Here you would give up the exchange, but with the bishop pair and the king stuck there and unable to castle, it would be a better position for white. So after this castling, Duda goes back with the knight to f6, and here queen to a4 check. This is still known in theory. Knight to c6, defending the bishop, and now knight to e5 with a double attack against the knight here. So rook to b8, and now comes well, we could say this position was reached last year in Altibox Norway Championship. Levon Arnan had white pieces against Fabiano Caruana, where he attempted the d5. And that was a really intense game, but ended in a draw. Here, Carlsen goes rook f to d1, and this is now a completely new game after move 10. So here we have castles, and now knight captures on c6. Pawn captures, and now queen captures on a7 instead of on c6. Carlsen decides to keep these two double c pawns later as easy targets. Bishop to d7, and now queen goes back. Queen wants to go back all the way to c2. We have c5, opening up an attack against Carlsen's queen. Queen to c2, and now c captures on d4. Rook captures, and now taking advantage of this rook being on d4 to remaneuver the bishop to a much better square, c5. That will pressure the f2 pawn, and Carlsen goes rook to h4. So a very nice rook lift by Carlsen, and you can see that the h7 pawn is really feeling the pressure. If this knight wasn't here, queen h7 would be checkmate. So Duda wants to alleviate the pressure. He plays h6, and this is where the game really takes off. Carlsen develops with a great tempo. He plays bishop captures on h6, starts an attack against Duda's king. And what do you do here? You do have to capture. It is the best move. We have captures, and now not rook captures. If you capture with the rook immediately, king g7 attacks the rook, prepares for the other rook to enter the game. For example, rook h4, rook h8, and your piece sacrifice will be in vain. So after g captures on h6, we have queen to d2. Now, preparing to create this powerful battery along the h-file, it is not possible to defend the h6 pawn. So Duda finds a different plan. We have knight to h7, queen captures on h6, and now how do you prevent queen captures on h7 checkmate? You can't move the knight, because then you get queen to h8 checkmate. So not really a lot of moves you can do, but there is one move that saves you from getting checkmated. I'm sure you'll see it. It's bishop captures on f2 with check. Either white will move and then lose the rook, or you will capture on f2, which was played in the game, and then comes queen to f6 check. You force a trade of queens. We have queen captures, not capturing immediately. First you grab the b2 pawn with check. Carlsen has to move the king, king g1, and now finally knight captures on f6. And here we have rook to f1. Carlsen wants to go rook f3, rook g3, and end the game immediately if possible. But of course, such things are not don't happen very often in chess. So king to g7, making room for the rook to come to the g file. We have rook to f3, and now again you do have to be careful. If you play something silly like rook c2, then rook g3 indeed does win the game. You have to block with the knight, give up a piece, and then you just lose. So after rook to f3, we have rook to g8, now making room for the king on f8, rook h to f4, and again, Duda has to make a choice. How do you defend? You cannot defend the knight. If you move the knight, you lose the f7 pawn. So here Duda decided to give up 2 pieces for the rook. There was one interesting choice, although it's not all that great. He could have gone king h8 and allow rook captures on f6. For this, rook captures on g2 check. But after king moves and rook captures here, yes, you are threatening checkmate. But after king e1, white defends everything, and now you're just down a piece, and white would be better here. Any checks, black can go just rook f1, and everything will be all right. So after rook h to f4, Duda decided to go bishop to c6, attacking the rook here, and Carlsen decides to give up the rook. We have rook captures on f6, bishop captures on f3, rook captures on f3, and now rook to d8. So here, as you can see, Carlsen has, both players have 3 pawns, but Carlsen has a bishop and a knight for a rook. But while that is an advantage, it's not all that easy to convert an advantage into a full point. So let's see what happens. First, rook f2. Carlsen offers a trade of rooks. Duda declines, rook to b4, attacks the bishop, and now bishop to b5. We have rook to a8, pressuring the a file, and now a4. And okay, it's a very nice position. We have c6. You can't really capture here because rook c8 and your bishop and also knight are attacked after the bishop moves. So after c6, bishop to e2, and now comes rook to a5, stopping that pawn on a4 and waiting to see what Carlsen will come up with. We have rook to f3, now defending the knight on c3, and it's very important for white to first make everything work, you know, just put every piece on optimal square. The rook is controlling the knight, protecting the knight is protecting the pawn here, and well, now white can think of ways to improve the position. We have f5 by Duda, and now king to f2. Carlsen brings the king into the game. Rook to c5, and now comes bishop to d1. Now the bishop is also defending the a4 pawn, so now the knight from c3 can move. We have e5, knight to e2, and now king to f6. We have rook to a3. Perhaps now the a pawn can start marching forward. Rook to b1, attacking the bishop. King to e1, defending, and now e4. We have g3 by Carlsen, taking more control of the f4 square. If you started with a5 immediately, pushing doesn't really work. You just go rook b to b5, and after a6, rook a5. Captures, and now you're going to lose the pawn as the bishop or knight are helpless to defend it. So after e4, g3, like we said, king to e5, and now comes h4. Carlsen does have a passed h-pawn and also a passed a-pawn, but Duda also has a passed e-pawn and a passed c-pawn. What goes in Carlsen's favor is that a and h are outside passed pawns. So rook to a5, blocking the pawn, and now h5. Duda also starts pushing the pawn. We have c5, and now we have king to d2 by Carlsen. If you try h6, doesn't really work. Again, rook to b6, you can go h7, but rook to h6, again, you will lose this pawn. So after c5, we have king to d2 by Carlsen, we have c4, and now king to c2. Attacking the rook, rook goes back to b8, and now king to c3. And now Duda doesn't allow Carlsen such activity with the king, he forces him to go back. We have rook to b1, attacking the bishop, and now king goes back. King c2, rook back to b8, and now king to c1. And now rook to b6. Now this rook is controlling the a-pawn, this rook is not allowing this pawn to go any further. Again, Duda asks Carlsen how will he proceed. We have bishop to c2 by Carlsen, now comes rook to d6, and now knight to f4, simply putting pieces on more optimal squares. Rook to c5, waiting to see what Carlsen will do. We have rook to e3, and now comes king to d4. Here, an interesting idea for Duda was c3, taking more squares here from Carlsen's king, but also in some lines perhaps getting rook all the way to d2 was a possibility. But Duda goes for king to d4. He increases the activity of his king, but now Carlsen moves the rook. We have rook to e1 and now rook to h6. And this is the position where the famous Norwegian supercomputer Sese said that white is winning here, and came up with this very fancy diagram, which I also showed on Twitter. There you have it. This is Sese's plan in this position. So take the rook from e1 and make it go all the way from g6. So we can show it here. Sese's plan is a rook e2 to d2, forcing the king back, for example, to e5, then go all the way up, then here, and then either force a rook trade, or if the king perhaps ends up on e5, then maybe even rook to e6 threats of checkmate will be possible. But you know, it's always easy when Sese points it out. Carlsen goes king to d2. Carlsen finds a different plan. We have rook to e5, and now comes knight to e2 check, forcing the king back, king c5, and now rook to h1, defending his h5 pawn. Rook back to e8, and now comes king to c3. Now the king is very active finally on c3, and now rook to g8. And here Carlsen takes advantage of the awkward placement of the rook that is attacking the h5 pawn by playing rook to b1, and this is Carlsen's plan. He finally is able to give up the h5 pawn because he grabs more material elsewhere. Duda plays rook captures on h5. It is the best move, and now comes bishop captures on e4, and now you can see that the rook is not all that greatly placed. If pawn captures, rook b5 check picks up the rook, king c6, rook captures on h5. So after bishop e4, we have rook e8 attacking the bishop now. We have knight to f4 attacking the rook on h5, rook g5, and now rook to b5 check. King to d6, and now bishop captures on f5. And now, as you can see, Carlsen grabbed some material, but we have rook captures on g3 with check. King to d4, and now comes rook to g1. So it's still one pawn each, but now this pawn can be pushed, and this pawn is in danger. Rook to b6 check, king to e7, and now knight to g6 check. Knight to d5 check is also possible, but then the king escapes. Or, you know, if you go here, then you can get checkmated in one. But Carlsen decides to go for knight g6 check, forces the king back, king f7, and now simply wins the pawn. We have king to g8, and now comes knight captures on c4. Rook to a8, going after Carlsen's passed pawn, and now comes a5. The knight protects the pawn. Rook to a1, and now comes rook to b5. The pawn is now nicely protected. Rook to a7, and here we have bishop to e4. If king c5, simply trying to get the king up and win the game, then rook a6. You block the king, but then rook b6. And here you would have the option of playing rook captures. After knight captures, bishop captures, and now it doesn't really matter what you do. Rook b5 captures, and it's a draw by insufficient material. So instead, Carlsen finds a different idea. Bishop to e4, we have rook to c7, and now rook to f5. Cutting the king off from approaching the position. We have king to g7, and now bishop to c2. Making a plan to get the king here and block the a file with the knight and hopefully start pushing his pawn. We have rook to c1 attacking the bishop, king to c3, and now Duda, I believe, was in less than a minute on the clock here. And while there aren't all that many moves Duda can go for here, you could try rook captures here. An interesting idea, but after pawn captures, rook captures with check, king b3, it doesn't work. Because the black king is simply cut off from the position. The white king will be able to escort the pawn up the board, and it's a winning game for white, even though it seems Duda can grab a lot of material here. So Duda tried rook to f7, but Carlsen simply captured it. We have rook captures, king captures, and here Carlsen immediately played knight to a3, which will block the rook's control of the a file. The king will simply defend it from b4. You can go bishop to b3, push the pawn, and it's all over. And with the black king being so far away from the action, there are no chances of drawing this game. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it from round 12 of the 2019 Tata Steel Chess Tournament. As I mentioned, we do have the standings, so I don't forget. Here they are. After 12 rounds, Magnus Carlsen with sole lead, 8.5 out of 12. Without a single loss. I believe there is one more. Yeah, Dingliren also in 4th place with 7 out of 12. Also without a loss, but a point and a half less than Magnus Carlsen. Anish Giri with 8 out of 12 in 2nd place. Nepo with 7 out of 12 in 3rd. Like we said, tied with Dingliren. And also Vishwanathan Anand. Then with 6.5, Vidit Gujarati. With 6, we have Timur Rajabov. 5.5 is shared with Samuel Shankland and Richard Rapport. Young Krzysztof Duda with 5 now after losing to Carlsen. Vladimir Ferosev and Shahriar Mamedjarov 4.5 out of 12. And Jordan Van Forest and Vladimir Kramnik sharing last place with 4.5. Oh, so all 4 of them are sharing. Okay, all 4 of them sharing with 4.5 out of 12. And Kramnik even won his last 2 games, so Kramnik drastically improved here. So there's one more round to go. In the final round for the title, for the winner of the 2019 Tata Steel Chess Tournament, it will be Anish Giri versus Magnus Carlsen. Carlsen will have the black pieces, and as you can see, Carlsen is already a half a point up. Giri will have to win against Carlsen to claim the title. There is no other way for Giri to do it. So I believe, yeah, there's no other way. No one else can even get close. If anyone, Anand, Dingliren, or Nepo wins, doesn't really matter. They're just tied with Giri. So yeah, it must be done. Either Carlsen will win or Giri will win. And I don't think we will even see tie breaks. So definitely tomorrow is after the 13th game, it's over. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Mitchell Kirchner, Noah Kirby, Polak Shlomo, Christian Kioni, and Antti Pavilianen for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, hopefully with some more interesting content. Thank you all, and have an excellent rest of your Saturday.